7 hours? He'll live. The doctor said it loud enough for half the waiting room to hear, and every word hit harder than the pain burning through Marcus Reed's leg. He was a black man, bleeding through his bandage, yet somehow still treated like a nuisance instead of a patient. Something in the room shifted attention, a silence, a breath held too long. And then the door swung open. What stepped inside would rewrite everything that followed. The first thing he heard was the doctor's voice cutting through the hallway like a blade. 7 hours and he's still complaining? The words weren't even whispered. They were meant to land. Marcus Reed, a 50-year-old black man, sat hunched in a plastic chair outside the surgical wing of Street Gabriel Hospital, his foot wrapped in gauze already soaked through. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed like a reminder that pain didn't matter here, not his anyway. He had checked in before sunrise. Now it was early afternoon, and he still hadn't been examined. Every few minutes, a nurse would push a gurney past him, never making eye contact, as if acknowledging him would add to their workload. Then came the sentence that froze him. People like him can wait. He's not critical. The doctor didn't even bother lowering his voice. Marcus lifted his head, unsure if he'd heard right, but the look on the man's face confirmed it: cold, dismissive, and already turning away. He tried to stand, but the pain shot up his leg in a blinding wave. Somewhere behind him, a monitor beeped in an off-rhythm pattern, like a warning of what was coming next. A few steps away, a nurse called his name. The hallway fell silent, as if the air itself were holding its breath. Marcus limped toward the examination room, each step leaving a faint smear of blood on the floor. The young nurse guiding him kept her eyes down, almost whispering, "I'm sorry," before pushing open the door. Inside, the room was cold, metal, and hurried nothing about it suggested compassion. The doctor, a white man in his 40s with a jaw clenched in perpetual irritation, didn't look up when Marcus entered. He scribbled on a chart, muttering, 7 hours for a swollen foot. Ridiculous. "It's more than swollen," Marcus said quietly. "It's getting worse." The doctor finally turned, glancing at the bandage with visible annoyance. "You people always exaggerate pain. That's why the ER is a mess." His tone was clinical, but the words were venom. A sting of shame flushed through Marcus, not because the words were true, but because the nurse flinched like she'd heard this before. She placed a fresh pad under his foot, her hands gentle, and whispered, "Hold still." The doctor snapped, "Don't waste supplies. Just clean it and discharge him." Discharge. The word struck harder than the pain. Marcus had waited 7 long hours, bleeding into his own shoe, and the man responsible for his care couldn't be bothered to take a closer look. The nurse hesitated. Her eyes flicked to the chart, then to Marcus's wound. She swallowed hard. The faint smell of infection rising from the gauze said more than the chart ever would. "What would you do?" Marcus asked softly. "If this happened to you?" The nurse stepped back, torn between fear and conscience. The doctor rolled his eyes, reaching for the discharge papers. A tiny detail broke Marcus's composure. A single drop of blood, sliding off the table and hitting the floor with a soft, humiliating tap. He closed his eyes. The room spun. And the doctor said, "Sign it or leave. Either way, I'm done." But someone else was about to enter this story, and the doctor had no idea. Marcus could barely walk when he reached the waiting area again. The nurse watched him from the doorway, hands trembling as if she wanted to help but couldn't risk it. The doctor's voice echoed behind her. "If he's still here in 10 minutes, call security." The threat hung in the air. Marcus sank into a chair, his bandage leaking through again, the pain now pulsing in sickening waves. He felt invisible, like an object taking up unwanted space. People passed by, some staring, some pretending not to, but no one stopped. 7 hours earlier, he had walked into this hospital hopeful. Now, he was slipping towards something much darker. Just when he thought he had no strength left, his phone buzzed. One word on the screen. "Here." A moment later, Footsteps cut sharply through the hallway. A woman in a charcoal suit, mid-30s, calm, razor-focused, strode into view. She headed straight for him. "Dad," she said, kneeling to inspect his foot. Her tone shifted instantly, becoming cold steel. "They let you sit like this?" Before Marcus could answer, the racist doctor appeared behind her, irritation already rising.
"Ma'am, he's being discharged. If you're here to pick him up, please move quickly."
She stood slowly, turning to face him. "And you are?" "The attending surgeon," he replied, chin lifted. "This is a simple case. Nothing urgent." Her eyes hardened. "Really? Then explain why his infection has spread past the dorsal arch." The doctor froze, because the woman standing before him wasn't just someone's daughter. She was the deputy director of the State Medical Investigation Board, the one person in the entire building with authority over his license. The color drained from the doctor's face. The nurse stepped forward instinctively, as if finally allowed to breathe. The hallway grew so quiet that even the hum of the vending machine sounded loud. The woman opened her briefcase and pulled out a file stamped with an embossed seal. "I've been reviewing complaints tied to this hospital. I wasn't expecting to find my father untreated, bleeding, and ignored for 7 hours." The doctor stammered, I didn't realize." "That," she said, "is exactly the problem." Security arrived, but not for Marcus. The nurse spoke up for the first time, voice trembling but resolute. "I tried to tell him. He wouldn't listen." Within minutes, the doctor was escorted away, pending emergency suspension. Nurses rushed to stabilize Marcus, preparing him for surgery he should have received hours earlier. As they wheeled him toward the OR, his daughter rested a hand on his shoulder. "Care is a right, Dad," she whispered, "not a privilege someone gets to ration." Down the hallway, the racist doctor disappeared behind a closing door. But one detail lingered the nurse's quiet, relieved exhale. A reminder that justice had arrived today. But the fight wasn't over.